It's not weak to speak up about your problems. Now, this might seem like a weird one for me to do. It feels like we've done this over and over again. We encourage people to speak out, we encourage them to talk about their issues and not to allow themselves to be um, silent when they have issues. But I was at a school today and a kid after the session came up to me very, very quietly and said, "How do I learn to speak about my problems?" And I asked him a couple of questions, and he just said, I have issues. I know I have issues. I don't want to speak about them." And it turns out he was just afraid of what people were going to say. So that's why we're going to talk about that today on Mark My Words. So, yeah, let's do it. See what happens. Welcome to Mark My Words. Mark My Words is the story of my journey from a place where I was shattered to where I could live again. It's funny how when you say something a number of times, you assume that everybody's gotten the message. You assume that I don't need to speak about this anymore because I've spoken about it so many times. But this young man, when I was at the school today, was thanking me for my courage. He'd never heard a bloke talk about his mental health issues the way that I did. I was so grateful that this kid chose to have this conversation with me. But at the same time, I was really saddened by it because he goes to a school where they talk about mental health issues. I've been in that school before. I've done different programs in that school. And yet, for some people, there is still this fear of speaking out about their mental health issues as if people are going to judge them or, I don't know, make fun of them, something like that. So I'm going to do this one more time. I'm just going to remind us all and myself that it is okay to be not okay. And it is not weakness to speak up about your issues. I was speaking in a school today and a teacher and my colleague was telling her story. And every time I hear a colleague's story, I always go, "Oh, what am I doing here? I shouldn't be telling my story. My story is nothing compared to theirs." I compare myself. And the thing is, my pain is real, just as her pain is real. And it's the same situation I was in with my brother when he came back from Afghanistan. You know, something was wrong. And we knew that something was wrong. And he knew that something was wrong. But to talk about it, to say something about it, seemed to be admitting weakness, admitting that you are less than. I was once about to speak in front of a classroom full of people, and I had a colleague with me, and I was um, um, introducing them. And I got about partway through the introduction, and they looked at me and shook their head. And I said, "Excuse me just for a moment." And I walked over to her and she said, "I can't do it today." So imagine that pressure. You've shown up at a school, you're standing in front of a class full of people, and you realize that you are not mentally able to do that task. I think about the courage it took for that young woman to turn to me and say, "Mark, I'm not in a place for this to be safe for me today." And this was a woman that had spoken about her story. I'd heard it tens of times, not hundreds, but, you know, 20, 30 times I'd heard this story. I knew she could tell it. I knew that it was safe for her to tell it. But on this particular day, at this particular time, it was going to be unsafe for her to tell her story. It was going to traumatize her to tell her story. Now, we walked out of that session at the end. She came up to me, thanked me profusely, and then proceeded to try and slink away. And I said, "Well, what's going on?" And she said, "Oh, I just feel like I let you down." I feel like I'm a failure, and you're going to go back to the bosses and tell them that I couldn't do it. And I won't be invited back to talk about it. And I said, well, look, mate, if you were doing a talk tomorrow, I might suggest that you not do it. But if you need to take a little bit of a break, month, 2 months, 3 months off to just take care of yourself. And I just reassured her that far from seeing her as being weak or less than, or she wasn't the strong person I thought she was, it turns out in my mind she was even stronger because she faced up to that pressure, that peer pressure. I'm about to tell my story. A class full of kids is waiting to hear her story. If she doesn't tell her story, she's a bump on a log and it doesn't make sense that she's there. None of that was the case. I had nothing but admiration for her courage to say, you know what? I'm not up to it today. I just want to encourage you, no matter where you are with your journey of well-being, it is always okay to speak up. It always takes courage. And I believe in you. I know that a mental health hiccup is just that. It's a hiccup. It's not a relapse. It's not you going back to the beginning. It's not you starting again. It's times have got tough and I've had to take a break. The end of last year, I had to take time off from this podcast. And in my mind, this is a weekly podcast and I do this rain, hail or shine. I've done it in -2 degrees in this area. I do it no matter what. I do it if I'm having voice struggles. But last year, it just got too much for me. And I had to step back and I had to have the courage to say, you know what? I'm just going to put old episodes up for a while and just let people know that, stuff's going on. It is always okay to speak up and it always takes courage. And as I said, I believe in you. I know that this is just a hiccup. Please, please, please reach out to someone. I am not a therapist, but if you want to get in touch with me, jump in the comments. More than happy to have a chat. Have a great day. I look forward to speaking to you again next week. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to Mark My Words. I'd like to thank my producer, Meredith Brosnan, and also Torian, Kevin, and Lorraine. And I can't forget the band Adelaide, who allows us to use their song as our theme.